Okay, this is Byrchall High School, GCSE PE, one of our revision podcasts. This one looking at components of fitness, which is on paper one, another topic on paper one. We've already covered the four body systems. This one is the first non-body system we have covered, but obviously there's crossover between the different parts of the course. As ever, there's nothing visual on this podcast. It's an audio podcast, so you can listen to it. There's nothing to look at on the screen, but obviously we put it up on via YouTube channel. You can go back to any other podcasts and listen as a different way of revising. And obviously speak to your staff or your teacher if you need any support or any help. I think for this one, it shouldn't be that long, this one. There are 10 components of fitness that you need to know. Components of fitness are elements that make up a skilled performer. And there's 10 that you need to know. And you'll need to know a definition for each one. You'll need to know a sporting example, or more than one sporting example really for each one. But remember, our sporting examples need to be specific. It's not enough to just say a sport. You need to say when that component of fitness can be seen in a sport, because obviously at different times in different sports you will get different things happening which might show different components of fitness. We've also talked a lot in lessons about the fact that many sports will have a lot of different components of fitness happening at the same time, particularly team games where there's lots of change and lots of different things going on at the same time. You might have 6, 7, 8, sometimes 10 components of fitness all happening. It's important that you can identify the most important component or the least important component, or you even more so be able to rank the most important. So yes, there's 6 or 7 I can see here, but what's the most important one you can see at a particular moment in a sport? So that's really important. We also had a debate in lessons about whether you could improve your components of fitness, and I think we all agreed that we probably could. With training, you could improve most elements of your performance. However, we also discussed the fact that there are some people who are born with incredible elements of particular skills or components of fitness that make them top performers, that even if we trained for the rest of our lives, we may not still get to the level they are, because there's an innate, a born with skill that they've got, which makes them a particular high level performer. So we talked about the difference of nature and nurture, and we probably agreed it was both. So we'll go straight into our 10 components, and we'll talk more as we go about examples, etc. The first one is cardiovascular fitness or cardiovascular endurance. Can be used as either name is fine. And this is the ability of the heart and the lungs to supply oxygen to the working muscles over a long period of time. So if you're exercising and you need to get energy to your working muscles, it's your heart and lungs that work together to supply that oxygen to the working muscles. Without good cardiovascular fitness, you're going to struggle to do exercise over a long period of time. In many respects, it relates to aerobic and anaerobic. We want athletes to stay aerobic as long as possible. If you can work anaerobically, as you know, but you also know you'll get lactic acid, and this leads to muscle fatigue and soreness, and eventually it can stop the muscle working. So the ability of the heart and lungs to supply oxygen to the working muscles over a long period of time. Tests for this you would normally do. The one we've done at school is the Cooper run, which you might call the 12-minute run. How many meters you can cover in 12 minutes. You can do a multi-stage fitness test. You might call it a bleep test or a Eurofit. They would also test your cardiovascular fitness. In terms of what sports would use cardiovascular fitness, well, there's lots of examples, but you could go with things like long distance runners, triathletes. It's going to be long distance. We're supplying that oxygen to keep the muscles working for a long period of time. Yes, games players, footballers, netballers will need cardiovascular fitness to be able to last the full length of their game. Similarly, you might get a dancer who's got a long routine who would need cardiovascular fitness, but anyone really who's got a long distance event, certainly anything that lasts over 30 minutes is going to require cardiovascular fitness or cardiovascular endurance. So that's the first one. The second one is called muscular endurance, and muscular endurance is the ability of your muscles to repeat contractions over a long period of time. So contract, keep going, keep doing the same contractions without getting tired. And obviously you would realize that if you do start to get tired, what would happen is your performance would drop as your body tired and your muscular contraction is tired. So the ability of your muscles to repeat contractions continuously over a long period of time. The test for this would be the sit-up and press-up test. We did those both in school. We've done them both in school. And again, there's a little bit of crossover here. You can imagine the previous one, cardiovascular fitness, that we are supplying oxygen to those muscles, and then those muscles need to work over and over again. So a Tour de France cyclist who's repeating a movement on a bike over and over again for hours and hours and hours would show muscular endurance mainly in the legs, not all legs, but mainly the legs. You might have a similar thing with a long distance rower, a long distance swimmer who is doing the same action over and over again for a long period of time. And that would be muscular endurance. Next one we would define is speed. Speed is the time taken to cover a given distance by the body. The time taken to cover a given distance by the body. Not really that much to say about speed. It's fairly obvious. The test for speed is a 30-meter sprint test. And again, we've done those in lessons. Speed would be used in lots of sports, but you're going to have to be specific about when. The obvious thing would be to say a 100-meter sprinter, where the whole event is about speed. Similarly, a short course swimmer, their event is about speed. But then we can go into games. A rugby winger gets the ball and sprints. You might have a centre forward sprinting through to win the ball. You could have even a tennis player sprinting to the net or sprinting side to side to get the ball. A lot of sports will involve speed at various moments. You just have to pick out the right ones where speed would be absolutely key. Okay, on to strength or muscular strength, which is the maximum force that a muscle can apply against a resistance. Now, that resistance can be anything. It could be your own body weight. It could be an actual weight. And obviously what we're looking for is this ability of the muscle to do a very strong contraction with a force against it. So the main test for this, the one we've done at school, is a hand grip dynamometer, where you calibrate the equipment and squeeze the handle and see how many kilograms you can pull on the scale. But we did talk about that being, is that a good test of muscular strength? We weren't really happy with it because we said it probably tests grip, and if it does test muscular strength, it would mainly be in the arm. A better test is probably 1 rep max, which you would do in a gym, which is just to see the maximum weight you can lift in one contraction. And you could do that on any part of the body, a leg press, bicep curl, a bench press, whatever you wanted, to see the maximum force or resistance you can lift in one repetition. In terms of examples of this, so massive forces, you could have a weightlifter as be the obvious one. Please don't use bodybuilder. It's completely different than Olympic weight. We have the idea of Olympic weightlifting where they're testing the maximum force. You'd see strength in gymnastics when they are holding their body weight or doing a particular explosive movement. You would see a lot of games players in a tackle have to show strength. So again, football or rugby, it's a battle. It's a huge contraction and a one big contraction. But again, you'll see it in lots of different sports. You may see it in basketball, explosive jump. You'll see muscular strength to push the leg up and then lift the body over that contraction. So that would be strength. On to the next one, which is power. And there's 2 definitions you can have for power, which is doing strength movements quickly, or you can have speed times strength will also get you the mark. We always use the example of a rugby player. If you tried to tackle a rugby player from a standing start, so they were still and you had hold of them and then they tried to run, it would be a lot easier to stop them than if they've got a 15-20 meter run up on you, where they can use their strength and their speed together to create power. So power is strength movements quickly, or speed times strength. The test for power, and there's 2 tests. We have used the standing broad jump at school, or standing long jump. And they can also do what's called a sergeant jump, or a vertical jump, where you make a chalk mark on the wall, then you see how high you can jump above that chalk mark. So we're looking for this explosive power. In terms of sporting examples, you can think of throwers in athletics that need speed and strength together. That might be a discus throw or a hammer throw or a javelin. They'll need speed and strength to do it. And again, in team games, you might be jumping for a ball against an opponent. And imagine a footballer trying to win a header or a hockey player running and then trying to win a tackle, or anything that would require speed and strength together would show power. Moving on again, we have flexibility. Flexibility definition, the range of movement at a joint. Now, again, I think I've seen people answer questions with flexibility and use words like bendiness. You must not put things like that. We are talking about the range of movement at a joint. In terms of that, the test for it is the sit and reach test, which we've done in lessons. In terms of sport examples, the obvious one would be something like gymnastics, when you are getting your body into a particular position to execute a move. You would have lots of flexibility in dance. You would have lots of flexibility in something like ice skating, but also in other sports, your goalkeeper would need flexibility to get their body into a position to save a ball. Similarly, a wicket keeper in cricket would need flexibility maybe to catch a ball and getting the body in a particular position. Lots of sports would show flexibility. Okay, the sit and reach test, which we said, and again we said it was okay, but it was mainly testing flexibility of the core and the hips, and obviously we might not test flexibility every part of the body, but it's not a bad test. And you've also had all the normative data when we've been looking at coursework for that. So that is flexibility, the range of movement at a joint. We move on to agility, the ability to change direction at speed. The test for that is the Illinois agility test, where you ran around the cones on a particular course. It was how fast you could do it, changing direction at speed. In terms of sporting examples, think of any sport where there's a dodge or a change of direction to beat a player. So again, to lose a player in netball, to dodge them in rugby, when you do a step, drop the shoulder and go around someone. Similarly in football, anything where you change direction at speed. There's lots of team games where there's constantly open changing environments. You are changing direction at speed. You are going to have to show agility. So loads of examples of that you can think of from sport where you have to change direction at speed. A goalkeeper may have to change their body shape at speed to make a save. Almost all team games have lots of agility involved in it. Okay, we move on again onto balance. The ability to hold the centre of mass above a base of support. Base of support is normally going to be the floor. It doesn't have to be. It could be a beam in something like gymnastics. But holding the centre of mass above a base of support. And if that centre of mass goes past that, over that base of support too far, then obviously you may tip over, fall, etc. Two types of balance we've looked at. We've looked at static balance, where you're holding a particular position. That might be a gymnast holding a landing as they land on a beam or off a vault or something like that. And we've got a dynamic balance, which is balance on the move. That could be anything from a footballer dribbling while someone's trying to knock them off the ball. They're showing balance. Similar thing in rugby. There's lots of different examples. So dynamic balance is balance when you are moving, and static balance is when you are holding a particular position. And normally it is still. So you'll see lots of those examples in things like gymnastics. The test for balance, test for balance would be the standing stalk test, which is quite hard, and you're 1 foot and then you have to get the heel off the floor. But it's not a bad test for balance, just to see. Again, it probably tests static balance more than dynamic balance, but you actually move to readjust to some degree. So that would be balance. We then move to coordination, which is the ability to move 2 or more body parts smoothly and accurately. The ability to move 2 or more body parts smoothly and accurately. The test for this is the wall throw test, or the alternate hand wall throw test, where you're throwing a ball against a wall, you catch it, and then you catch it with the other hand, and you get a rep for every one of those you do. Now, obviously, coordination is vital in many parts of sport, and there's many different examples. Running would need coordination to some degree. Your legs going, right leg's doing one thing, left leg's doing another, arms doing another, head's doing another. But there's lots more examples where lots of different things are happening in the body at once. So a tennis serve, loads of different body parts going in slightly different directions to do different things. Think of a golf swing where your hips have got to do one thing, your arms got to do one thing, your shoulder, your head, etc. Lots of different body parts doing different things at the same time, would be for coordination. Finally, we have reaction time, which is how fast you respond to a stimulus. how quickly you respond to a stimulus. Normally something happens, you have to respond to that. And obviously you'll often find that then you have to change your body shape. So it would link to agility. So you might have something like, obviously the start in a 100-meter sprint race or a sprint race, the gun goes off. How quickly do you go? Well, it may decide if you win or lose that race, how fast you respond to the stimulus. But you also get a lot of reaction time in sports like table tennis and badminton, where a shuttle or a ball is hit really fast by opposition. You don't know where it's going to go. The stimulus is where they hit it, and then how fast you can respond to it decides how much time you have to return it. And obviously if you get the more time you get, the more effective you're going to be in your response to that. But again, football goalkeeper saving a penalty, hockey goalkeeper saving a penalty, lots of reaction time in lots of sports. Tennis player trying to receive a serve. You think of how fast some tennis players hit a serve, well over 100 miles an hour, and you've got to respond to where it's going and move your body there as quickly as possible. That shows reaction time. The test for reaction time is the ruler drop test, which again we've all done in lessons. Again, the stimulus being someone dropping the ruler and how fast you can respond to that. So we've covered the 10 components of fitness there: cardiovascular fitness or endurance, muscular endurance, speed, strength, power, flexibility, agility, balance, remember the static and dynamic, coordination, and reaction time. In the exam, I can't ever remember an exam where this hasn't come up somewhere on the exam. Make sure when we're giving our examples we are very specific about when, because as I said, if we take a sport, let's just for instance say rugby, a rugby player carrying the ball, trying to get to the try line, is going to have to show speed, they're going to have to show power, they're going to have to show coordination, they're going to have to show agility to go around people, they're going to have to show dynamic balance, they're going to have to show possibly some cardiovascular endurance or fitness if it's been late in the game. So they're going to show lots of those components, but which one do they show at the most at that specific time? That's really important that you can identify those. And obviously this also forms part of your coursework, going through the components of fitness for the sport of your choice. So hope that's helped. Obviously you've got notes in your book, revision guides, you've got knowledge organisers, etc. So that's the end of this podcast for components of fitness on paper 1. See you later.